Welcome to Positively Caffeinated. I'm Camden.
I'm Tesh. Glad that you're here. Welcome to our channel. We appreciate your support. Today we're thinking about, as you can probably tell, we're out on the farm as always.
Freezing our butts off.
Freezing our butts off. What is it? 30
Yeah,
something?
30 something.
And, we're committed to this, because it's fun for us. But as you can see, we changed our atmosphere. We're not at the big table. We're closer to the house. You can still see the background of the farm and everything, which we're excited to share with you. But today we were thinking about, a couple things come to mind for me is, you're 20 something, I'm hitting my 60s, so generationally the coffee experience or the culture of coffee and how you perceive it. So like when you think about you're Gen Z, is that what you are?
Gen Z, yeah.
And I'm at the end of the baby boomers. When you think about the coffee experience, or no, let me ask you this question. When you think about what is the best beverage, or what's the beverage your generation likes that you think that they would go for, and nowadays, like when they go to the coffee house, what are they looking for from a beverage perspective? Is it just fancy beverages? What is it?
That's a good question. I think a lot of my generation, we're all about high caffeine and like energy. So I think we gravitate towards, kind of the cold brews and, the refreshers or like the fizzy energy drinks and that kind of thing. Because I think also there's something added to like cold beverages that you don't get with hot beverages. That, my generation likes. Again, going back to that, like, because when you drink something, like you get into like a cold plunge, or, you're sitting out here right now, like you're very like, kind of jittery. So like when you have that cold beverage and you take a sip of it, you're like instantly like, okay, I'm awake now. So I think that's why. To answer your question.
You want a quicker, I wouldn't say necessarily caffeine. You're saying you also want a quicker feeling when you drink your whatever coffee you're going to drink.
Yeah, like awakeness, more awake quicker.
I think our generation, because of, I was thinking about that, we were kind of preempting our discussion today was, you think about 1980s. As you know, Mom and I had our own coffee house, previous, like in the Blue Marble.
Mm-hmm.
We started that in 87, 88 through 1994. And we were in Southern California. There was only, I think, 18 coffee houses. And when I started in the cafe latte in Hollywood, California, prior to that, there was only 3 coffee houses in Los Angeles at the time. They were calling coffee houses. Some were called bakeries, and they serve coffee. But
why do you think that was?
It hadn't caught on at all. It was just, even, they had Berkeley, some of the trends that you hear about now, Pete's coffee places in San Francisco, but it hadn't even caught on. And as you know, there's different waves that have happened. But I think our generation, so you think about the 90s, it's always been, and I believe it's also because of how we were raised, but black coffee was kind of the in thing. Just get a good black coffee for my day going to work. And I think it led from that to the 90s, and that's when we saw, a big wave of coffee houses, especially Starbucks and Pete's and some of the other ones go from there. And then, we got into this baby boomers got into lattes, but still drip coffee was a big one. And then 2000 was more of the atmosphere, the coffee house scene.
Liked the hot coffee. You guys didn't have iced coffee?
No.
Then, like, it wasn't, or you guys didn't like iced coffee? Like, why did you guys gravitate towards?
I don't ever recall drinking iced coffee. I've been drinking coffee, and even if I think about, Lola's dad and so forth, he would keep a coffee pot on the burner all day. He'd go to work, he'd come home, and he would take the coffee pot and drink it. And it was like, I don't know what it tastes like. But then, then from there was, I think it was just kind of pushing the trend forward, because we were kind of at the, this is going like 40 years ago. So we're in our 20s and 30s ourselves. I mean, the baby boomers at that point, maybe a little bit older than that, if you look at the whole spectrum. But
yeah. So around my age, yeah.
Yeah, and a little bit older. So probably from whatever the baby boomers are, 35 to 25 at that years. And so they were just starting, right? So the whole thing was get a good cup of coffee, and then espresso came about. And then, different waves of experience. So when you go to think about, so kind of, you guys are more in the iced beverages, we're more in the hot beverages at this point. And then when you think about the experience of the coffee house, what kind of, like, you think about, hey, I'm going to go out to coffee house with friends, or even when you were going to school and stuff like that, did you guys look at coffee houses from, is it more about the atmosphere? Is it about
I think
convenience?
it's kind of the same thing I was saying about the coffee. I think we look for that same thing in the atmosphere itself,
Uh-huh.
like that high energy. It's like you it's pretty cool out here. It's a high energy, like, so we like to see, I think there's a correlation between us wanting high energy beverages, or like that kind of that peppy,
Uh-huh.
energy in the atmosphere where we get the beverage, because somehow that correlates together, like you see people working at the cafe or the drive-thru or whatever, and they're obviously very energized and happy, and we think, like, oh, like, you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
correlation between the atmosphere of the place. And I think my generation specifically it's about quick energy. It's about high energy, quick energy, and keeping that going for as long as you can.
That's interesting. Because I think when I first started in coffee and the coffee culture and so forth, I believe it was that way. There was, call it baristas, or whatever the coffee house calls them, but, primarily the baristas, is that, they were looking for people that, like you said, had high energy, really want to connect with the other humans, and connecting, just generally connecting with people. I mean, that's why I started in the coffee business too, because it allowed you atmosphere around a beverage of choice, because caffeine is, it's a choice that you're making, and it's, a higher tick price of, beverage, because you could go to like a Mapco or a gas station, right? You get a 90, I always tell people you get a 90-cent cup of coffee, but then you go across the street to one of the chains or whatever,
Yeah,
or local coffee house, and you're paying $3 for a cup of coffee. So
true.
what are you expecting from that experience? So I think I agree with you. I think that hasn't really changed generationally. I think it's changed in regards to what you get at some places. I see the new up and coming coffee houses. I think they're doing a better job than maybe some of the traditional coffee houses. They haven't made it as complex, I guess, and so forth. And you're not waiting, even with the apps. And so, is apps important for you guys? Like, do you want to order online before you? Okay,
Def Well, I think again, it's like that I was saying, is it's all about getting that high energy fast.
oh, so
So
you,
being able to pre-order it while
right.
you're at home, and then it's going, and like having, I wouldn't say, I think there's a misconception that we don't enjoy the atmosphere of working at a coffee shop or like sitting down with a coffee,
Yeah.
but I think we like the option of, drive-throughs or mobile order and that
Uh-huh.
kind of thing for when we don't necessarily have time to sit down in the coffee shop, but we still want that hit of energy to keep us going through the day and
Interesting.
the other
Interesting.
activities.
Yeah, and I think for us, because the way that it evolved in our kind of our lives, it was a place we didn't have a place besides if you go to, a bar or something like that where you met people, right? Then as the coffee house scene kicked in, you were meeting potential, or a girlfriend, a potential wife, business
Yeah, yeah,
partners,
yeah.
all that was now at the coffee house. I remember my mom, who lived in Tennessee, and telling her about, there's a, because we were in LA and all that, there's this coffee scene, and they're paying, you know $3 a cup of coffee, and da da da. And she's like going, there's no way we're ever going to pay $3 a cup of coffee. And then one of the
Oh my
national chains
gosh.
came to, this is several years later, came to uh, Tennessee, and I remember talking to her years later about it. And I go, and they have an accounting company, as you know, them meeting some of their clients and so forth. And then they got their tradition. They would go down to this, you may know about audience, Franklin, Tennessee, a place called Five Points, but they would walk down there, and they had their dogs, and it was just a ritual. Then it became a routine for them, right? Which is kind of cool. And they just liked it from, which most of us do, a familiarity, kind of like Cheers, right?
Yeah.
Comments, what was that, 70s or 80s? Hey Norm, how you doing? That's what I always thought the coffee house, enrichment of the coffee house that you wanted in coming into the cafe, be it, I think we like more the sit down, and I think I don't want to get too bogged in the weeds here, but
No, no.
I think there's something to say. I think all the newer coffee houses are going for the drive-through experience, quick and easy, like you said, in and out and so forth, whereas some of the traditional coffee houses are still trying to hold on to the big cafe, a lot of seating room. I think there's a space for those things, especially like college campuses,
Definitely.
hospitals.
Libraries.
I just don't know if the average, 20, 30, or 40-year-olds, because that's your main clientele, is 25 to 45 is really the biggest, because they're in the business, they're going to work every day or whatever. If they want that same type of atmosphere in their stores as well, because now you have the app, and you've been in stores where the app customers are 20 people deep. And if you want to walk in a store and get a beverage, it's like
That's true.
through people.
And depending on the store you go to, they all have different methods of handling it. Like, some I've been to where it's like the mobile order and pay is like the same level as someone that walks in through the front door. So they're making the mobile order and you're thinking, oh, I just ordered my drink at the bar. Where's my drink? And they're like, oh, well, we had a 20 drink order, prior to your drink. So you end up waiting there and stuff. I think going back to what you're saying about grandma and like the $3 and that kind of thing, clearly she bought into it eventually. Yeah. She was probably paying more than $3 at that point.
Yeah.
And I think
now it's $5.
Well, yeah, probably, if not more, for the same cup of coffee. But I think, that's how it evolved, right? You're right. Is that for you guys, the price was justified by the experience.
Yes.
But then for us, we grew up with that always being the price. So for us, that was the bare minimum. That was just a cup of coffee. So now, we're probably paying, $6 or $7, or more willing to pay $6 or $7. But again, it's, our expectations for an experience are different than what they were back in the day. For your generation, it sounds like. And I think I'm curious, I'd have to do some research, but I have a feeling that it isn't that we don't want the atmosphere. It isn't like, there are some stores that like got rid of seating and stuff for us to like hang out, and like it's more like on the go drive-through models. Right. But I think that's not the key. I think coffee shops kind of have traditionally are more like a low-key, slow down kind of vibe where, you sit down, you have your cup of coffee, and it's like, you're doing your work.
So close the door, and the outside world is one way.
Yes.
Inside world is kind of what you want it to be in the coffee house. Oh, that's interesting.
And I think for my generation, like I was saying, it's the high energy. So if you had a high energy coffee shop where that was the vibe of the atmosphere, if you would find more people staying there for longer periods of time or wanting to have like a sit down.
So if you had your favorite, or I'll ask this question this way. If you had your favorite coffee house experience that would make you want to go back to that coffee house, what would that environment be?
Okay, well, for me, I actually have a perfect example for this. Okay. It was a hybrid model. Okay. So it wasn't just a coffee shop. It was also a rock climbing place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you could come, you could work, and you could get yourself a coffee or a latte, whatever. They call it your name basically. And you go rock climbing with your friends, and you're rock climbing on the wall. And then you come down, and then you can have a study session and drink some coffee, and then go back to rock climbing afterwards. And it's all in the one location. Wow. I think if they had, that's what I mean by like high energy.
So even more so the experience, but not the experience in the sense of how we were talking about the connection piece, which I think for us is, for me, like the experience for me would be, yes, you go into it, it has a great atmosphere. The people really care about that you're there, they don't have to necessarily know my name or anything like that, but they know, you call it table touch the restaurant business, but, coming around and saying, hey, you need a refill or kind of that old school kind of thing, I guess, nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that they care that you're there and you just spent $10.
That's so true.
More so.
Yeah.
And I do, it's funny you said that too, because I think there's a place that I went to. It was kind of cool. It was in a college town, and they had something similar. They had a pottery shop next door, but it was just a line in the sand.
That's really
basically.
Cool.
And so a lot of college students were there and they were doing their thing, but then they had these pottery classes. Yep. So it attracted actually a very mix. So you're saying more of a multi-purpose kind of space is even more trendy for your generation. I don't really think about rock climbing. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess.
But art studio places said they were saying there are art classes in them. So using the space much differently than even traditionally we've known, just get in and out. Could they open up places more like that? That would drive you to go back to that place more frequently than just a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I think it's like the whole drink beverage thing again it became the bare minimum. So the normal coffee experience, that it was enough for your generation. We're like, okay, that's cool and all, but like, let's add something else to this to have it be like a great experience.
Right. That's neat. That's neat. Now you guys, you drink, what's your traditional, like, get up in the morning, what's your like day in your coffee experience for you?
Oh, You know,
You wake up and
I have a lot of caffeine in the morning because
so what do you do?
I wake up first thing in the morning and I take pre-workout to jumpstart the day.
Okay.
So that's probably like, I don't know, a
That's the
cup.
power stuff.
Yeah. So it's like a powder and you put it in water.
And you go do your workouts and
Yes.
stuff. Okay.
And then go do the workout. So right off the bat, like from within 30 minutes of me getting out of bed, I'm already jacked up on probably like 1.5, cups of coffee.
Okay.
And then I go work out, I come back.
But you're burning that off when you're doing your workout and stuff, right?
I think so. I think that's the theory there. Scientifically, I don't know if that's actually accurate. We'll find out. But then after that, I kind of do that to jumpstart the day. But then after that, I like to slow down and do more intentional. So the second cup of coffee, I do the French press. And that's more just it's more of like a morning ritual than I think it is actually for like the caffeine and the energy for me. I think we discussed this in a previous episode, but I really enjoy like the smell of the coffee when you're making a French press. And
so there's experience that kind of ties into your ritual and so forth. And then is that all the caffeine the rest of the day?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have like an occasional cup of tea or something, but for the most part, that's usually it. I try not to have any caffeine after, I'd probably say like, 12 or 2.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah, I mean, mine is, of course, get mom her coffee in the morning, and then that's my wife, so, my mother.
Just not his mother, my mom, his wife.
But yeah, and then get myself a cup of coffee. For so many years I was drinking so much coffee, kind of cut back on that as a whole. Yes, mochas, and then doppio espressos, and then making that, and then I'll kick in the afternoon in tea and so forth. But I think it's cool that multi-generational, because we're about 40 years difference between you and I.
Oh yeah,
and that that the coffee scene is still evolving. From what it was, back in the 1970s and 80s to today, which I do think is cool about the coffee scene as a whole. And I'm sure there's another wave, that's coming for the next generation and so forth. But I think it's cool that in the same space you see parents, child, grandchildren, all enjoying a beverage. There's very few places that you can go, a one-stop shop for everyone to enjoy that experience. I mean, I can't really think of too many, really.
Well, to add on to that, I think, one thing that, we share between the generations, though, I think across all the generations, is that it's regardless of, the experience of the coffee shop or the venue, it's all about community. I think both of our, that's what the whole purpose at its core. It's, even though I'm like, oh yeah, I want a coffee shop with a rock climbing gym or something. It's all about the community that you find in those spaces.
True.
And
so the human connection is still, and think about, you were at this beginning, because that was you were 18 or 19 when the COVID hit. Yeah. So evolution around, I think, the your generation and all those things. But I do agree with you. I think that at the end of the day, we need more of that. We need more of human connection, kindness towards each other, and just lifting up the human spirit. And yes, there's a cup of coffee, and there's a lot, in the background of how the cup of coffee, I'm sure in future conversation we'll talk about. But I like that you brought that up there, because I think there's more need for community connection, getting out and connecting with other humans. And it might be just a simple hello, good morning, and so forth. But I do believe that helps our society, in a positive way to know that, without each other, we're never going to be our best selves without each other.
Well, I think we, a lot of the times we see the differences, sometimes it's it seems very black and white. Like when you think of, the baby boomers and then the Generation Z, I think there's a lot out there about how we're very different.
Yes. Yeah.
Two different time periods. But then you have stuff like this where clearly at its core,
right,
it's still the same. It's community, even though we want, different things. And from the outward perspective, you can see it as, black and white, but it's really not. It's just more of like a gray.
Yeah. Yeah. And we can all be, like you said, we can all be in the same space and we enjoy it. Well, we hope that you guys enjoyed listening to us kind of talk about our generational gaps, but also our similarities and how it ties into the experience. You want to wrap us up?
Yeah. Subscribe. Thanks for coming. We're going to run inside now because we're freezing our butts off.
Exactly.
We hope you're also inside and warm, and we hope to see you next time. All right.